on what we got. All we can do is create awareness, but politics are gonna be politics. And while they figure out what they figure out, we need to figure out how to really help. We need to get creative. We need to figure out solutions while they're losing their lives over there literally for something that we wake up every day and appreciate, which is freedom.
Listen, he doesn't have a lot of specifics there, but I like the fact that he's saying freedom more than you hear often in showbiz. And I respect the fact that he thinks politicians are more about tricks and tricksters than getting things done. I don't know. I just wish there were more people in showbiz in Canada or the US that cared about freedom. So much of Hollywood is on bended knee towards communist China these days.
Yeah, and it's kind of, there's a history of that, right? I mean, you saw, a lot of, I guess you could call them, activists or intellectuals or celebrities in the past have always been very much, pro-Marxist or pro-communist. Of course, not to actually live in those systems.
Cuba has made a mass arrests and appears to have shut down the internet on the island after people took to the streets in unprecedented numbers to denounce the government. Will Canada condemn the communist regime's oppression of dissent, or do you agree with President Diaz-Canel that the U.S. embargo and Miami-funded mercenaries are to blame for the crisis?
We, as a country, Canada has always stood in friendship with the Cuban people. We have always called for greater freedoms and more defense of human rights in Cuba. We will continue to be there to support Cubans in their desire for greater peace, greater stability, and greater voice in how things are going.
Well, there you have it. Justin Trudeau asked to make a statement about the brutal crackdown on Cuban democracy protesters, the biggest Cuban democracy protest, ever, I think. To my pleasant surprise, Joe Biden is actually being firmer on the subject than I thought he would be, firmer than Barack Obama was as president. But Justin Trudeau, you know him, he's in love with the Castros, and the most he could muster was he stands with the Cuban people. But that doesn't say anything about getting rid of the totalitarian regime under which they live or the brutal suppression of these democracy protests. Joining us now to talk about it is our friend Spencer Fernando from SpencerFernando.com. And I got to tell you, he's got a great article on this. You got to read it. It's called "We Wouldn't Put Up with Pro-Fascist Leaders, So Why Do Those Who Support Communists Get a Free Pass?" Spencer, great article. And you really do us a favor by reminding us of how obsequious Justin Trudeau is towards the Castro family in particular. He's just got this soft spot for tyrants, doesn't he?
Yeah, especially communists, right? I mean, Trudeau has no problem, and the Liberals in general have no problem accusing people of being fascists or totalitarian. But when it comes to communists, all of a sudden it's somewhat different, right? I mean, we saw the statement he issued when Fidel Castro died, and it was like it looked like it was written by the communist propaganda department. It was just absurd. So yeah, a total soft spot. I mean, obviously his family has a real history with the Castros. We've seen all the photos of his father and his mother, visiting Fidel Castro. So it's quite disturbing, and it's such a double standard, right? Because say like a right-wing government in the European Union, like Hungary, does something, right? And even though if it's democratic, people voted for it, but it's like a crackdown on immigration or something, all of a sudden, all the leaders, oh, this is terrible, this is unacceptable, and right wing, blah, blah, blah. But then when it comes to, an actual authoritarian communist state, just look at how few people even are willing to say communism, right? You almost, in many of the media reports, you don't even see people calling it the communist government of Cuba, right? It's all just the Cuban government, right? So it's very interesting how they treat this.
There's this young Cuban-American, he's not that young anymore. His stage name is Pitbull. He's a Cuban-American rapper. I know I'm too old to be listening to Pitbull, Spencer, but I get a kick out of him. I want to play for you an excerpt from his Twitter rant that he did this week. And my favorite line is when he says politics and politricks. He says the word freedom about 10 times, but you can sense his frustration, with politicians who aren't actually doing anything. Here, I won't play the whole thing, but here's a minute of Pitbull saying the word freedom over and over again. Oh my God, I wish more Hollywood types talked like this. Here, take a listen.
And this is my way of talking to the world. All world allies get together to help. Global businesses get together to help. People that we're so proud of, people such as a Jeff Bezos, Cuban-American, graduated from a high school in Miami, built one of the biggest companies in the world, the richest man in the world. He's somebody that can get involved and really help us on what we got. All we can do is create awareness, but politics are gonna be politics. And while they figure out what they figure out, we need to figure out how to really help. We need to get creative. We need to figure out solutions while they're losing their lives over there literally for something that we wake up every day and appreciate, which is freedom. So to everybody out there, stand up, step up, and if you don't understand, get with the motherfucking program and wake up. Because this is about freedom and it's about human rights. And to everybody in Cuba, keep the fight up. Para todos los cubanos que están allá afuera y todo lo que está pasando en Cuba ahora mismo.
Listen, he doesn't have a lot of specifics there, but I like the fact that he's saying freedom more than you hear often in showbiz. And I respect the fact that he thinks politicians are more about tricks and tricksters than getting things done. I don't know. I just wish there were more people in showbiz in Canada or the US that cared about freedom. So much of Hollywood is on bended knee towards communist China these days.
Yeah, and it's kind of, there's a history of that, right? I mean, you saw, a lot of, I guess you could call them, activists or intellectuals or celebrities in the past have always been very much, pro-Marxist or pro-communist. Of course, not to actually live in those systems, right? I mean, they are glad to make a ton of money in the capitalist system, become very rich, enjoy their freedom and their wealth. But for other people, yeah, communism must be a great system. It seems to be how they think, right? And so it's been like that for a long time. We see a lot of it in Canada too. I mean, politicians kind of flirting with Marxism who, they don't want to live in that kind of system and they're glad to, succeed in a capitalist society. But for other people, yeah, let's impose that on other people seems to be kind of their attitude. So yeah, there's very few celebrities who are actually willing to defend freedom and openly criticize communism.
Yeah, you see a lot more of the John Cena types who's blubbering his apologies to the communist regime for offending them. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.